Welcome to Pike Parent University Educational Webinars for Families. My name is Amanda Bloom. I'm the English language teacher at Eastbrook Elementary, and we're going to talk about supporting your English as a new language student at home. In today's session, you're going to learn why developing academic language is important in any language, ways to support your students' academics, as well as provide you with some community resources to assist you. The first thing we need to discuss is the difference between social and academic language. Almost every language has a formal and informal use. Our informal uses are social language, kind of like the way kids talk to each other on the playground. It's the language you need to communicate with your friends. It's also the language you need to communicate your needs and your feelings. This is also the language we use at home with our families. I speak very differently at home to my children than I do to my students at school. I use a less formal language when I go home. This language is quickly picked up when learning a new language because there's a huge incentive to learn that type of language. You want to fit in with your peers, you want to be able to participate in activities, and it's a lot easier to pick up on. On the other side, academic language is more formal. It's the language that we use in the classroom or the professional world. It's the language that books are written in. It's also the language that we take tests in. It's also the language of academic success. It requires you to support your ideas with evidence, and it's a lot more difficult to pick up in a new language. It has a lot more rules and procedures in using it, and it makes it very difficult for students, especially children, to pick up, even if it's their native language. So why is academic language so important? Well, students who master academic language are going to be more likely to be successful in academic and professional settings, and students who do not learn academic language are going to struggle a little bit. So even if you are not confident in your English speaking abilities, supporting a student's formal language in their native language is going to be crucial so that they can look for the alternatives in English. Which brings me to my next point. I am not confident speaking English. How do I help my student learn academic English? Learning academic language in a student's first language is extremely important. You can help them do this by reading the books or telling them stories to help developing their vocabulary in their first language. You want to keep building that vocabulary so that they look for those new words in English and begin to use them in school. We find that students that have some schooling in their native language adapt more quickly to academics in English because they have learned to read and write in their native language and can transfer those skills to their target language of English. It's okay for them to learn to read in their first language. A lot of the skills transfer. I have a lot of parents that are afraid to work with their students in their first language, thinking that it's going to confuse them. But that's not so much the case. That whole process of matching sounds to symbols is very difficult to do when you don't have any bearing for that in your first language. So we see a lot of kindergarten students that start learning a new language in kindergarten when they come to school, take a little bit longer to learn how to read than those students that arrive in second or third grade and have had some schooling in their native language. So it's okay to teach them how to read. A lot of those skills will transfer. Some strategies for building academic language in their first language are to have students retell their day. We want to make sure that they know how to use transition words like first, next, then, and last. It's a tricky conversation to have with students because even with my own 4-year-old, if I say, "What did you do at school today?" I get, "I don't know," or "Nothing." And then I have to prompt her for, "Surely you did something today. Can you please tell me, something exciting about your day?" And that's how we kind of get her to build those skills of memory and also the ability to talk about things in a certain order. You can also have students tell you what happened in a movie that they're watching. If you're cooking dinner and your student is watching something on their tablet or phone, you can kind of ask them questions throughout. You can ask them what happened. Have them tell you the beginning, middle, and end of something. That's a very important skill in any language. You can say, "Why do you think something happened? How do you know that this person is responsible for this action? What's going to happen next?" These are also questions that they're going to want to ask themselves when they learn to start reading, so it's important that they can explain those in their native language too. Some more strategies for building academic language would be to talk to them while they're playing games. You can ask, "Tell me about what you're doing or drawing. Why did you do it this way?" If they come against a problem, you can say, "What do you think is going to work? Can you do it another way?" You can also have them compare things. How are these things the same? How are they different? Or what else can you do? It's just preparing their minds to have the language of thinking so that they can process how they think about things and communicate them to other people. And you can do that in their first language, and they will be able to transfer their skills to their second language. So let's talk specifically about supporting academics in preschool through second grade. A great resource is storytelling. If you can tell good stories, you can make them up about characters that they fall in love with, or even about the characters that they watch on shows. My dad used to tell me stories about Garfield because I would read them in the comics, and so all the stories were about Bugs Bunny or Garfield, but it just got us in the habit of listening to stories, and then sometimes he would have me tell the stories, and that gave me some more language that I wouldn't have had without that practice. You can also read wordless picture books. You can have them tell you what's happening on any page, and you can make up your own story. You can say rhymes and sing songs. Rhymes are good for helping them remember things, because if they can remember the rhymes, they can start to teach themselves to remember other things. You can engage them in some meaningful conversation. You can also watch educational children's programs together. There are a lot of good ones on PBS Kids, and you can put the subtitles on so that you can kind of recognize the words that they're listening to in English, so they can start to match some sounds to what words look like. You can also have the subtitles in a different language so that you can help each other learn how to say things in a new language. You can read books in your native language, and that will help them develop vocabulary, because words are in books that we don't necessarily say every day, so it's kind of a good experience just to give them some extra vocabulary, and then they will look to find those words in English. You can also read bilingual books. If you read both English and your native language, you can get a bilingual book, and then you guys can practice thinking and talking about things in both languages. My favorite thing to do with kids in kindergarten through second grade is to play games. Games promote all sorts of language skills. They can also boost social skills, like taking turns. They can help them be a graceful winner or a graceful loser. Those are skills that we need to help them be successful in the classroom, because if we play educational games and kids get upset and don't know how to relate to each other, it can take away from the academics that they're supposed to be learning at that time. So we do teach them those things, but it's also helpful if they learn those things at home too. Learning counting skills like one-to-one correspondence, the ability to match your counting with the actual object in order so that you don't count it twice or you don't skip it. So that is an important skill for the students to learn in any language. Also being able to match numbers, say this is the number 1, find a card that has the number 1 on it. You can also use these games to support reading, because if they have instructions or little cards that go with them, you can have them practice reading. But playing games also has another important function. It helps them concentrate. You know, you have to pay attention to what you're doing until the game is over. And that is something that is crucial for kids to learn how to do. It also helps them stick with something for a long time, because if they start playing a game and it seems too long, they might try to abandon it. But if you can teach them to finish the game, that will help them finish a book or a story or finish their writing project. Just that skill of being able to stick through something until the end can be achieved by playing games, and it can be fun for them. I know an example, a lot of people play as loteria, and you can have them count how many more do you need to win. Or you can say you had 2 on this line. How many do you need to have it match the other line? And you can ask, you have this many covered. How many do you have now after you have this next one added to it? Those are things that'll kind of help prepare them for math. If you just kind of asked, them to add on to things. You can also say things for their social skills like no one wins every time, or make sure you let your brother or sister have a turn. Or how do you think your brother felt when you bragged about winning? Oh, you don't think he felt very good, did you? Well, let's try and, find a way to win and say, it's okay, you'll win next time. And kind of help each other at home get along a little bit better. In grades 3 through 5, you can do a little bit more challenging things. It's important for them to have time every day to read. And then if you do send them off somewhere to read, make sure that you ask them about what happened. Say, what did you read about? What was interesting about it? Can you tell me the characters? What did they do? Did you like them? Why or why not? Those things just kind of help them see reading as something that's more than just activity that doesn't have a purpose. It kind of sets a purpose to have that conversation with you and have some time with parents to have a little bit more fun. You can also have students check out books along with the matching audiobook so that the audiobook will read to them the book and they can follow along in the written book so that they can get more access to fluency and hear language pronounced the way with the same rhythm that it has in English, and that can help them a lot. The more they see a word and hear it being spoken at the same time, the chances are better that they're going to be able to recognize that when they're doing it independently. You can also ask students to help you read a recipe before you start to cook. Or you can have them read instructions on how to put something together that you bought that is new. My other favorite thing is taking them to the grocery store. You can do certain math problems in their heads, like how this box of spaghetti costs this much. How much will 2 boxes cost? Or how much change should I get if I give them a $20 bill? Or help me double a recipe. How much are we going to need to buy to make sure that we can feed double the amount of people? Those are good things to help them get set for some math concepts that they'll have in grades 3 through 5. So games for students in grades 3 through 5, it's important to kind of add some strategy to them because strategy games will help promote their critical thinking skills. And you can have them make moves and then say, why did you move that one there? And they can give you a reason for it. And then that will help them in their reading and writing at school, even if it's in their first language. These strategy games also help you see moves ahead. They can improve a student's attention and concentration, just like the other board games I mentioned. Having them stick through something until the end is a very important skill. These games can be digital or traditional. It doesn't really matter as long as they're using their brains to do some sort of strategy like checkers, chess, or my personal favorite, Connect 4. Okay, for middle school, the students become a little bit more independent and some of them kind of pull back from their academics. They've also possibly been English learners for a long time and they don't see themselves as English learners, and so they get kind of frustrated. Just kind of help them with their social and emotional well-being and let them know that they've come a long way and that they're doing the best that they can, and make sure that they know that they are cared about, because a lot of times this is the time where they kind of lose focus with school. Still want to set aside time for reading. You also want to discuss maybe what's going on in the news with your student. That way they can have some conversations at school. You can help your students stay organized and keep an agenda of what work they need to complete. Sometimes the kids have so much more work in middle school than they're used to, and they can overlook assignments because they don't have a way of keeping track of what they've already done. You can also discuss the day's events. And I would check Skyward and Canvas for missing assignments because they do tend to fall off the wagon a little bit in middle school, and maybe you need to stay on top of them a little bit better by checking for missing assignments. You can also ask your student to explain some of the things that they're learning, and if they can't seem to be able to do that, you can ask their teacher what can be done to help. So one thing in middle school that could be a support is this Khan Academy. You can use the search function to find videos that explain lots of different topics. It is free, but sometimes they will have an announcement for gifts or donations like Wikipedia does sometimes. You do not need to pay money. Just go to the website www.khanacademy.org and you can search for different videos that will help explain things if they didn't quite get them in class that day. In high school, you definitely want to stay in touch with teachers and counselors. They have different ways of seeing your student and they all want them to succeed. Make sure you become familiar with graduation requirements so that you know that they're taking the right classes to achieve their goals. You can also check Skyward and Canvas for missing assignments. They seem old and independent at that age, but they still kind of overlook some of their work, or they might not feel like doing it in class and then it becomes a missing assignment or a 0. You can also check to see if they have a resource class or a study hall. As an English language learner, students have the option of having a resource class if it fits in their schedule, and that's a class where someone is there to help them with some of their in-class assignments or homework. But they also have a study hall which wouldn't provide them any support, but you would be able to get your work done in the event that you have an after-school job or sport and you need some extra time during the day to actually get some assignments done. So those are two things that are very handy for an English language learning student to have, but they do not provide credits. So you would lose a credit by taking a resource class or study hall, but in the long run it may be worth it if you're going to be able to earn credits in your other classes. It's also helpful to aid our high school students exploring potential careers, helping them set a goal for themselves of what they might like to do when they finish. You can also offer your child some encouragement and support because it is kind of a scary time. They're almost independent and adult and they have some worries about those things too. If your student does have a job, you can help them balance their work and school life. Try and figure out what kind of job would work best for their schedule and how to manage any extracurricular activities. It can be a lot for a kid to deal with scheduling all of those things and finding the time to fit in everything they need to fit in. You can also stay on top of their attendance and tardies through Skyward or check in with their counselor for college scholarship opportunities. Also, you can check in with them for financial aid opportunities for college or post-secondary education. If you've never been through the college experience before and it's all new for you, the guidance counselors are excellent at kind of navigating those things for you, and they can provide you with all sorts of resources and information to help you get your kids into college. Some helpful technology for at-home learning language. Duolingo is a very excellent free app where you can learn English or any other language, so as Babbel. Google Translate is a great program. You can speak into it and it will translate for you, and then the person you're speaking with can have their speech translated back and you can kind of have an awkward but okay conversation together so that you can get your needs met and your students can get their needs met as well. For the younger students, PBS Kids has a lot of videos that are educational as well as some games, and Starfall is a great place to learn the alphabet, and I think those you can actually get on through Clever, but if not, you can find them on the App Store as well. Lastly, my favorite community resource is the library. Our Pike Library has a lot of wonderful things in it. I have some pictures. These are my actual kids, Isla and Sophia, that I had to take pictures of. I just wanted to make sure that I had permission to use them. So since I'm their mom, I think I got permission for myself. They have these wonderful computers in their children's section that read stories to them, and then the words will light up as they're being said so the kids can follow along, and it goes back to every time they hear a word and see it written in print, they're more likely to recognize it again when they're going to read it independently. And then in the middle picture is my daughter Sophia learning how to count on Sesame Street app that's at the public library. And they also have a whole stack of audiobooks, so you can check out the actual book and the audiobook, and the kids can listen to the book while they're following along with the words, and it helps them with fluency and reading recognition. One other service they have that I like are what they call bunny bags. And they have bunny bags in English that you can just take a bag full of 10 books home to check out, but they also have bunny bags in Spanish. So they have bags filled with bilingual books as well as Spanish books so that you can read them together at home. And it's all in one big bag, and they have plenty to choose from, so there's high interest there. And all you have to do is show them your library card. Some more things you can do at the library. It has internet access. They have public computers, and they also have free Wi-Fi. You can kind of check out some things. They have a color printer, a copy machine, a document scanner, some mobile printing services, and an outgoing fax. But one thing I would like to highlight is that they also have English conversation circles. You can bring the whole family to those. And they have them in person, and they also have them online. It's where you can log in and practice speaking English with other people. And it's not a class, so you don't have to be nervous about it. You're all learning the language at the same time, and you're just kind of practicing and working things out together. Another homework help for our students would be the Rose Holman Homework Helpline in math or science. Students can call, email, or chat online with a tutor from Rose Holman College. They would be a college student. The tutor starts the session by reviewing the problem, and they guide the student through the math or science problem until the student understands the solution. So they generally kind of work on it together until the student can explain how they got the answer back to the tutor. So there's a couple ways to get to that. You can go to their website, askrose.org/howitworks, or you can call their tutor line at 877-275-7673, or you can send them an email at the address that I provided. One last community resource is the Immigrant Welcome Center. So the Immigrant Welcome Center's mission is to help families assimilate into Indianapolis and to be made aware of everything that Indianapolis has to offer. So they have a Immigrant Welcome Center Connect resource database that you can search for all sorts of materials and things that you might be able to need, and you can read stories about that in many different languages. So you can just kind of go in there and search around and see if it has what you need. They also have a helpline with multilingual translators that can speak about 200 different languages. So you can have anyone ask questions. They're open every day from 9 in the morning until 5 in the evening, and you can reach that number at 866-711-1342. They can also get you in touch with their Natural Helpers program. It's where some volunteers help transition people that are new to the country to life in Indianapolis. So that's definitely a program worth checking out if you need some assistance there. But in addition to all those things, they can help with citizenship classes and citizenship support so that you can work your way up to being a citizen. And they also have their own English language services called Adult ELL Pathway to Literacy, where they work with adults to help them read in English and in Spanish or their native language. But I think it's mostly English and Spanish. But they are a great resource. And that is all I have for today. I hope we have covered everything we need to cover to help you support your ENL student. We covered the difference between social and academic language and how it's really important to build academic language in your first language so that they can look for those words in their new language. And we covered how to support your student with their academics, as well as provided you with some community resources. Thank you and have a great evening.